What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. It's Thursday morning, August 21st, rather, and we got a 6-game early DraftKings slate going. Looks like it might be a solo show this morning. We'll see if we get someone joining me throughout the show. Otherwise, can't promise too much, but I will do my best solo to go through this 6-game slate on DraftKings. Questions in the chat are appreciated as I try to get through this 6-game show by myself. You have to bear with me pulling up stats, information, all that stuff as we go through this 6-game slate, but I'll do my best to break it down for you guys as I see it. And I guess nobody to talk to. So let's get right into the games. Only a few lineups out. We do have a spread out slate early. With games 3 hours apart. So hopefully some lineups coming out during the game. Otherwise, we'll do our best to go through it. We'll start off in Minnesota for the only game starting at that 2:00 Eastern time. We do have veteran Jose Urena throwing from the right side for the Twins. Definitely a pitcher to pick on in general, really only making starts with the Twins, kind of down to the bare bones at starting pitcher. So Jose Urena will take the ball. We'll see how long he goes. I think it's really dependent on how he pitches. We did see him throw 76 pitches last time out, did get through 5 2/3 innings in that one. Did Urena. So I think you don't want to look at him, but these A's left-handed bats in particular look good to me. Kurtz, Soderstrom, and Butler, the big three that I'm looking at with the A's. I think all three of those lefties are good plays. You can certainly go to the full A's stack as well. It is expensive, but pretty good day to hit in target field. Ball should be flying, and we should see, I think, some power from the A's here. So in on the A's, again, especially those lefty bats look good to me. And then, of course, Langeliers, Rooker in the middle of it all look good too. That top 5 for the A's. That's Kurtz, Langeliers, Rooker, Soderstrom, and Butler all look like pretty good plays. I'll certainly be on those guys. And then on the other side of the ball, really tough slate for pitching, I think, on this 6-game early slate, but I am looking at Jack Perkins for the A's. Rookie pitcher has looked good his last 2 starts out, made it 6 innings and 5 innings. Does also have 16 strikeouts in his last 13 innings. So good swing and miss stuff from Perkins in the minor leagues and in these last few starts at the big league level too. Twins lineup, obviously, not something you need to be super afraid of. Some of these lefty bats look okay. Larnach, Lee, Clemens in particular, I think are good plays at the top of the Twins order. But overall, Perkins, admittedly somewhat by default on this slate, but I do think he's one of the better options at 7,200, especially if you're trying to fit in Dodger bats, which obviously is an appealing thing to do with another game in Coors Field. So Perkins does make the cut for me as a decent play. I'll be looking at him, at least to some degree, going up against this Twins lineup. I don't think I'm going to too many Twins bats, but like I said, those cheap lefties, lefty power. Again, Twins do have 3 good ones. Larnach, Lee, Clemens, I think are all good one-offs type of lineup fillers if you're not on the Perkins train with me. We'll go to the next game. 2 veterans here in Kansas City. A little bit of wind blowing in, so it won't play quite as friendly in Kauffman Stadium as it typically does, but should be fairly neutral park-wise for hitting here. Michael Lorenzen throwing from the right side for Kansas City, and Patrick Corbin throwing from the left side, of course, for Texas. Corbin coming back to earth a little bit. It kind of surprised a lot of people, including myself, with a decent season for the Rangers this year. But last 3 starts have been rough. He's given up 13 earned runs over around 10 innings in his last 3 starts. That's kind of the more Patrick Corbin that we remember, obviously, from, frankly, many years in the past. So, I think this Royals team, despite, not a perfect matchup or not a perfect, park factors, all that stuff, and the Royals certainly disappoint often. But I do think, this Royals team, the right-handers, especially, again, no lineups for most of these teams, including the Royals. But India is super cheap, might be leading off in this game. We'll see. Could be down. Actually, no, I think he is down in the 6 hole. Yeah, we do have the lineup for the Royals, rather. It did come out. Yeah, India down in the 6 hole. I think he's solid. Garcia, Witt, Salvador. Really, those four are what I'm looking at. It's Michael Garcia, Bobby Witt, Salvador Perez in India. Grichuk hitting in the 5 hole. Good matchup for him against the lefty Corbin, but almost certainly going to come out for Mike Yastrzemski if and when the Royals bring a left-hander in. So got to be a little bit careful there. Going back to Twins game real quickly, I think just the one lefty, Funderburk, in the lineup for the Twins. So possible pinch hit risk for Lawrence Butler, but overall not bad for those A's lefties that I talked about. Going back to Royals and Rangers here, I did mention my somewhat love for the Royals bats, particularly Bobby Witt. Looks awesome to me. Michael Lorenzen, kind of a reverse splits type of pitcher throwing for the Royals. So maybe these lefties for the Rangers not in quite as good a spot as they otherwise would be in. But still, I do think the Rangers rather, in play on this slate, as are most offenses on a shorter slate. But it would be the top of the lineup for the Rangers, assuming it looks as normal that I'd be looking at. But overall, Rangers, not my favorite stack on this squad. I do prefer the Royals side. I talked about the A's. I do prefer them as well. So, and certainly the Rangers will be behind, of course, the Dodgers as well. So not my very favorite stack with the Rangers here. I do think they're in play against a mediocre pitcher in Lorenzen, but not something I'm super excited about with the Rangers. Don't anticipate using either pitcher in my 5 lineups on DraftKings today. Would be more likely to use Lorenzen than Corbin, but again, pretty lukewarm at best on both Corbin and Lorenzen. Not going to make the cut for me through 4 pitchers: Urania, Perkins, Lorenzen, and Corbin. Perkins, clearly my favorite of these first 2 games we've talked about so far. And then A's and Royals, my 2 favorite stacks through 2 games. We will keep it moving to Wrigley Field, where we've got another game with the wind blowing in pretty strongly. Our friends over at Ballpark Pal, as I update Saber here, a lot to do solo, but there we go. We are seeing pretty good ownership on Shota Imanaga here. Hard to argue with it too much with the favorable wind conditions in Wrigley Field. Imanaga, certainly a fly ball pitcher, should benefit a lot from the wind blowing in at Wrigley. And he is a pitcher where we've seen, it seems like over the last couple of seasons that he's been in the big leagues, most of his big starts, or at least a lot of them, have come in friendly Wrigley weather games where he is at least a little bit safer from the home run ball. So I do think Imanaga, I don't love the ownership on him at 25%, obviously against a Milwaukee team that's been awesome throughout a lot of the season, especially the last month or two. But Imanaga, nevertheless, on this slate does remain in play. I will say on a bigger slate with better pitching, if we go back 2 days to the Hunter Green Pavetta slate, I wouldn't really be looking at Imanaga on a slate like that. But on this one, at 9,500, I do think he is a pretty reasonable play. And then Quinn Priester going on the other side for Milwaukee. Again, pretty solid season for Priester. He's pitched well for the Brewers, as have most of their starters. 8,700 for him. Again, no Kyle Tucker in the lineup for the Chicago Cubs. Certainly lowers the risk for Priester considerably. That would have been, at least a healthy Kyle Tucker, maybe the most dangerous bat in the lineup for Priester, who does struggle against left-handed bats. So not the worst matchup in the world for Priester here. I do think he's in play. I don't play a lot of pitchers against the Cubs in general, but on this slate, I'll consider Priester. I do like Imanaga slightly better, but I think it's closer than the ownerships would indicate. We're seeing Priester come in. Sabres got him at 13% ownership compared to around 24 for Imanaga. So about half the ownership roughly for Priester. Yeah, I think it's close. Once you factor in the ownership between those two, I do think both Imanaga and Priester in play. And again, mostly off this game for offense. I just don't attack Wrigley Field games with hitting, with the wind blowing in very often. So I'll probably stick to that for the most part today. So off the bats at Wrigley Field. And I do think both of these pitchers on a fairly short list of pitchers to look at on this slate. So I will mix in at least a little bit of both Priester and Imanaga. And again, personally, off the bats here, I think it would be the Cubs lefties, Bush, PCA, maybe an Ian Happ that I'd be most interested in. But yeah, as I look at this lineup without Kyle Tucker. Oh, Kyle Tucker in the lineup. All right. I'll assume that is true from reliable source Brittany here. And that does make the matchup for Priester less interesting. But yeah, Tucker, I mean, he's been hurt. I think they said he had a hairline fracture in his hand since June, which is pretty crazy. But not going to play Tucker. That does indeed lower my interest, at least a little bit, in Priester, though, enough to, I think, put me on Imanaga over Priester. I was kind of on the fence on that one, but I will lean Imanaga with the addition of Tucker to the Cubs lineup. Yes, Stevers, riding solo today. We'll struggle through it and get through these 6 games. All right, that is the first 3 games. Brings us to Coors Field for an interesting game here. Obviously, the Dodgers, another monster total. Friends over at Sabre got the Dodgers sitting at 7.2 runs, which I think is similar to what the sportsbook total is on the Dodgers today. They get Chase Dollander. They will get, I think they already announced an off day for Ohtani today. Didn't pitch well again yesterday. He'll take the day off, scheduled rest day, maybe a little bit of an injury there as well. But Ohtani going to be out of the lineup. I think it'll just be 2 lefties, maybe 3 in there. Freeman and Conforto should be in the lineup. Again, we probably won't get this Dodgers lineup for some time now. We've got still 5 hours, or 4 hours rather, before this game starts. I'll nobody here to mock me. It's not game log Monday, so I'm all alone. Nobody to mock me. I don't think this is the craziest spot in the world to use Dollander, whose talent level I do like. I know the numbers for him have been bad, very bad this year, and especially bad at Coors Field, but he is cheap, $5K. The stuff is good. He does get to throw close to 100 pitches pretty much every time out. Been between 90 and 100, 3 starts in a row. A little bit of a watered down Dodgers lineup, not a lot of lefties. Leverage against the field, against what will certainly be popular Dodgers stacks. And I do still like Dollander's talent. Obviously, the results have not been there. I don't know. Could kind of see him playing well. Maybe the Dodgers sleepwalking a little bit with an early game in Coors Field. I'm going to play a share of Dollander on one of my 5 teams. We're seeing Sabre project Dollander at a whopping 0.12% ownership here. He'll be higher than that, but I do think he will come in higher than 5%. And again, it's the price and the leverage you get against what should be very chalky Dodgers stacks that has me willing to take a chance on a lineup or two with Dollander. Kershaw on the other side, he's pitched pretty good, 3 starts in a row. The pitch counts, the duration have been low for sure. We've seen him at, over the last 4 starts, 91, 88, 74, and 76 pitches. So hasn't been throwing a ton of pitches, but has been efficient despite some tough matchups. I mean, if you look at the last 5 games, he's faced the Brewers in Fenway, in Tampa Bay, versus Toronto, and versus San Diego. So a lot of low strikeout matchups there, especially in the last 2. And then some pretty tough offenses as well. San Diego and Toronto in particular, you'd expect to put the ball in play against Kershaw. And I will say, too, he did make it through 6 full innings in each of the last 2 starts. I just don't think the Dodgers are ever. He did go 7 once earlier in the season, but it's going to be rare that the Dodgers ask him to go more than 6 innings, which is really all you can hope for in Coors Field, especially on this slate. So Kershaw, clearly a very diminished pitcher from his peak, but the peak was high enough that even the decline of Kershaw has seen him pitch decently well. I do think he's in play against this Rockies team, but this is one where I think you can play both sides. The right-handed power for the Rockies, and listen, they do have a lot of it. Tovar, Goodman, Beck. You can go to Warning, Bernabel, Brenton Doyle. All these guys do have significant power, if a lot of strikeout risk, but Kershaw doesn't miss that many bats anymore. Just a 15% or so strikeout rate this year for Kershaw against right-handed bats. And, if you tell me the Rockies are going to make some contact, I do think they'll do some damage. Wouldn't be surprised to see Kershaw give up a home run or two, most likely to the guys I mentioned, those top of the order right-handed bats. Again, that's Tovar, Goodman, Beck, Doyle, and then maybe Bernabel are the 5 I'm looking at. But they should all be hitting close together in the order. And yeah, I think these Rockies right-handed power bats are pretty good plays against Kershaw. Talked about liking Dolander some, but of course do like the Dodgers bats as well. Freeman at the top of my list, and then Conforto, and honestly any other lefties the Dodgers have in there. Pretty good chance the Rockies have no available left-handed pitcher out of the pen. Only one left-handed pitcher in the bullpen for the Rockies, and he's pitched 3 out of the last 4 days. That's Luis Peralta, who did pitch yesterday as well. Could be available here, but it would just be for 1 inning, and I think a pretty good chance he doesn't pitch in this game at all. So especially good spot for Freeman. He is clearly my favorite Dodger, and then Conforto is the other guy I'm looking at. Don't play him often due to the pinch hit risk, but I think there's a pretty good chance Conforto does play all 9 innings, so I will go to at least a little bit of Michael Conforto. Brings us to second to last game on this slate. This one at 4 Eastern time. We've got 2 lefties going here. Mackenzie Gore, who, man, he has been all over the place. Obviously started the year completely on fire, was one of the best fantasy pitchers for the first couple of months of the season. Went through a horrific stretch starting in really the middle of July, a 4-start stretch where I think he averaged something like -5 DraftKings points. But then we've seen the return of the good Mackenzie Gore in the last 2 starts, 17 strikeouts over 12 innings. Still been throwing a large number of pitches between 90 and 100, and did have that huge game against the Giants 2 starts ago, 35 DraftKings points in that one for Mackenzie Gore. Hard to say with Gore. Again, he's been all over the place, obviously. And I don't love the matchup, of course, with the Mets, who almost certainly will put out the strongest lineup they can here against the Nationals. So I think Gore is an okay GPP play, just given the context of this slate, pulling up ownership here on Mets and Washington. We're going to see Gore 25% against the Mets. Feels a little high to me, given the difficulty of the matchup and the fact that Gore, despite the last 2 good starts, still been a pretty rough stretch overall for Gore in the second half of the year. I think he's okay at 25%, but certainly would want to mix in some Mets bats. And Gore, you can play lefties against him too. So don't cross off Soto, but it would be Pete Alonso and Lindor. Maybe some cheap bats like Mark Vientos, assuming he's in the lineup, that look good to me against the lefty Gore. We've seen a lot of power given up from Gore, and wouldn't surprise me to see that show up again today. But we do have wind blowing in Washington, so this will play, fairly neutral hitting wise. So like Gore some, but it's Sean Manaea who I have more interest in this game. If you look at the game log, it looks not great for Manaea over the last 3. He's been decent overall, missed the whole first half of the season with injury. Stuff looks okay for him, though, and then it is the matchup here against the Nationals that has me pretty high on Manaea. Probably going to make the cut for me on at least 2 of 5 teams, so I will be over the field on Manaea. I think they'll have him 40% or maybe even 60% owned on the slate. Might be my overall favorite pitcher going today. Sean Manaea gets a Nationals lineup that has a ton of strikeouts, and then maybe just as importantly, the two dangerous hitters, and really the only two dangerous hitters in this lineup for the Nationals, James Wood and CJ Abrams. Both got to face Manaea left versus left. No easy task. Manaea effective against lefties. Should be able to neutralize Wood and Abrams pretty well, I think. And then the rest of this lineup for the Nationals, I mean, guys like DeYoung, Adams, Chaparro, House, Young. We'll see what the Nationals actually roll out there for their lineup when it comes out. But it won't be great, and it'll be a good matchup for Manaea. I think no matter who they roll out there, it's either going to be those right-handed bats who aren't very good hitters, or it'll be more lefties, which is obviously good for Manaea, throwing from the left side as well. So a lot of interest in Sean Manaea. I think he is one of the very top options on the slate, likely going to be in my core plays when I get them over up on Run Pure Sports after the show. Not going, I don't think, to any Nationals bats. I think it would be the rookie Dylan Cruz, 3,200 in the outfield. Been hitting the ball pretty well since he's come back from injury. Former number 2 overall pick. And I really like his talent, power, speed. He's cheap and should have lower ownership, kind of buried at the bottom of the order. So on lineups, I'm not on Manaea. I think Cruz as a one-off does make quite a bit of sense. Let's get to the last game on the slate. Yeah, we can answer uniques. This differs for me greatly depending on the size of the slate. I think for a 6-game slate, I would use 2, maybe 3 uniques. I don't think you need to go beyond that. And I think I am a little bit more aggressive with the uniques. If I find a lineup that I really like, and again, mostly a hand builder here, but if I find a lineup that I really like that I can get a good 2v2, especially if I can swap out one of the pitchers, I'm fine using a 2v2 on my lineups. Maybe more overlap than some like, but again, if I can switch out one of the pitchers, I do think there's enough differentiation there to to roll out a 2 unique type of lineup. But I do think the general advice, if some of the more MME focused players here at Run Pure Sports, JBC and Schlong, JT, really everybody but me, would probably, I think, recommend 3 lineups. But good question there for sure. We'll get to the last game of the slate. If you're here watching this solo show, I'm doing my best. I know it's not quite the same without another person here. Hit the like button. Would appreciate that. And obviously, football coming up very quickly here. We've got college football on Saturday, and then NFL just, 2 short weeks away officially for the start of NFL season. We do have packages up on Run Pure Sports. You can use promo code RPS15 if you want to check out those. So go over to runpuresports.com. We've got packages for everybody at different price points, and going to be an awesome football season, no question about it. So join us over at runpuresports.com. All right, last game on the slate. Let's get to it. This one in San Diego, obviously a pitcher's park here, and we do have what I think will be the most popular pitcher on the slate. Certainly, Sabre thinks so. They've got Dylan Cease up here around 50% ownership, 46.6 to be exact for Dylan Cease, who obviously can be a volatile pitcher, but gets to pitch at home here, which we've seen the splits for Cease be much better for him at home. The strikeout rate goes up. He's got 90 strikeouts when pitching in Petco Park over just 67 innings. So enormous strikeout rate for Dylan Cease when he pitches in Petco Park, obviously a good place to pitch. And there's some of these parks, Seattle and Petco, San Francisco, the West Coast parks, where we see almost every year, almost the entire staff perform much better at home than on the road. I think there's something to, knowing how to pitch in these parks, can give up more fly balls, safer, and Cease against a Giants lineup that, just not a lot of legitimate threats, especially in a pitcher's park. Looks like a good spot for Cease, who should have plenty of strikeout upside here too against the Giants lineup that does swing and miss. So Cease, I think, rightfully going to be the most popular pitcher on the slate. I do if I had to, factor in price and ownership, I think I like Manaea better with, roughly half the ownership and a little bit of a discount, which does go a long way on this slate, right? I know a lot of people, including myself, trying to get in Dodgers bats on a decent amount of lineups. Obviously, the price discount from Cease, $1,100 to Manaea, certainly makes a decent amount of sense. So, in on Manaea, in on Cease, but I do prefer, I think, the price discount going from Cease to Manaea. Certainly, playing both guys, I think, is the safest option at starting pitcher. Again, that's Cease Manaea that I'm looking at. Hitters in San Francisco and San Diego. Verlander on the other side, again, a good place to pitch, but Verlander is hittable at this point in his career. And this Padres lineup, I think, makes some sense against him. Fernando Tatis at the top, he's expensive, but he's had some, pretty big reverse splits over the last couple of seasons. 398 xWOBA, expected production basically is what that number is against right-handed pitchers for Tatis. Verlander, a splits neutral pitcher, and Tatis probably leading off in this one. I do like taking one-offs out of the leadoff spot, need less help from their teammates to get there. Mm-hmm. Tatis, power and speed. I really like Tatis as a one-off. I do think you can go to this whole Padres lineup as a cheap stack, though. I don't know if I want to play slap-hitting Luis Arias, but Tatis, Machado, Merrill, O'Hearn, Laureano, I think make quite a bit of sense for this Padres lineup if you're looking for a little bit more of a contrarian stack. I'll pull up ownership here on San Diego and San Francisco. We're seeing, like I said, big ownership on Cease, rightfully so. Not much ownership on Verlander. I think that is a good number for him, 6 to 7%. I'm off of Verlander myself. Would only be a contrarian option. Not the craziest one, but I don't see Verlander getting a ton of strikeouts in this matchup. He's not a great strikeout pitcher anyway, and the Padres are one of the best teams at limiting strikeouts to right-handed pitching. So off of Verlander here, I do like the Padres some as a contrarian stack, and then, of course, in on Dylan Cease. Let's go back over pitching on this slate. For me, Manaea is going to be the number one option after talking through it, and no one to convince me otherwise. So no surprise that the pitcher I came in highest on, Sean Manaea, is my number one option, especially given a little bit of an ownership discount from Cease, and I think big strikeout upside for Manaea here. So I like him quite a bit. I think the safest pairing, Manaea and Cease. I'll have certainly plenty of both. And then other pitchers that I'm looking at here include Jack Perkins, who I do like quite a bit against the Twins. Again, up to 103 pitches for him last time out. He can be wild at times, but again, the strikeout upside against the Twins, I do think is certainly there for Perkins in this start. Probably have 2 or 3 shares of Perkins as well among my 5 teams. Clayton Kershaw, another one that I am going to mix in. Pitch count worries with Kershaw, along with some skill decline worries, of course, with him, but it is the pace-eating Rockies after all. Kershaw, he's made it 6 innings in 2 straight starts. We know the Rockies like to swing early and often. I do think Kershaw at 7,500 got a pretty good chance at 15 to maybe 25 ceiling for Kershaw. On this slate, I'd take either score, honestly, and plug him in gladly. So I like Kershaw, and then my truly way off the board contrarian option, and not for the faint of heart. I'll have plenty of Dodgers too, but Dollander down at 5K. Makes a lot of sense. I did build some lineups with Dollander prior to the show. One thing that I like to make sure of when looking at a cheap pitcher is, can you spend the money that you save effectively, right? Because you are certainly giving up a lot at starting pitcher to go down from guys like Cease, Manaea, Perkins even, to a 5K Dollander, but you can spend the money, right? Nick Kurtz is expensive. I talked about liking Tatis. Really, the rest of the A's lineup, is also pretty expensive. So if you want to get in that A's stack, which I do like quite a bit, certainly Dollander can help you do it. But don't no Twitter DMs if it doesn't work out for Dollander. Obviously, a risky play. I do think this is, given the context of the slate, how much people will be on the Dodgers. Nobody on Dollander, leverage, all that stuff I talked about when I went over the Coors Field game makes Dollander at least an interesting play to me, at least at 5K. I know most of you won't agree with that, but hey, it's my show today, and Dollander, at least some interest from me with him. We do have some lineups coming out now. We did get, obviously, the Cubs lineup. We talked about that. Tucker in there. Kind of surprising. They said they were going to give him a couple of days off. A little bit surprised to see him back in there, but does lower the interest for Priester. I think we saw another lineup come out while I was talking. Oh, yeah, the Rangers lineup just came out against Lorenzen. Langford, Seager, Semien, Peterson, Carter, Tellis, Smith, Freeman, Heim. Thought Smith would be in the top half, but nevertheless, this top five for the lineup, again, that's Langford, Seager, Semien, Peterson, Carter. Very cheap. I think around low 3Ks average for that five-man stack against a mediocre Michael Lorenzen. Makes a ton of sense. And yeah, this was reported either yesterday or today, maybe before that if I missed it, but kind of surprising he's in there. Again, wouldn't play Kyle Tucker, certainly. But again, low strikeout rate, or at least in theory, I know he's striking out a lot before he missed those couple games, but does lower at least the interest in Priester a tiny bit for me going against the Cubs. But again, still not super crazy about this Cubs matchup in general against Priester, who's a pretty good pitcher, does struggle somewhat against left-handed bats. All right, that is all 6 games, an abbreviated show today on this shortest slate in Rock and Solo. But there you go. There is my thoughts on the slate. This show will be back, hopefully in its normal version. Should be back with stats tomorrow, going over Friday Night Fireworks, full Friday slate tomorrow on the show. I'll be here with stats, breaking it down for you guys. Apologize just for me. Hopefully wasn't too bad. Got some good information out there. But until tomorrow with stats, I'll be signing off. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Good luck with your lineups for members. I'll be in the chat answering questions as we prepare for fun day of baseball. We do have a later slate with FanDuel too, but we'll leave that for premium members in the Discord. We'll get going with that one, of course, after the DraftKings slates start. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until tomorrow, I'm DC, and I'm out of here.